Welcome to eAssist Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Tune in as the experts in dental business share tips and tools to grow your practice. To learn more, visit dentalbilling.com. Please welcome our next guest.
Welcome, everyone. On today's episode of Growing Your Dental Business, we have the privilege of speaking with Janice Hurley, who is the image consultant. She is an image expert, not just for dental professionals, but she helps so many people on a daily basis. She's got over 30 years of experience, and she has profoundly impacted the dental community worldwide, I would add. She mentioned recently she has been working with a lot of speakers who speak internationally, and she has enjoyed that so much. She said she loves to do new things, and that is the new thing in her life. She helps dentists attract patients. She helps dentists increase their treatment acceptance. And she's not only helping professionals with all of those things, but she helps them find energy to have the joy that they need in their workplace every day. Her mission is simple, but it's powerful, and that is to help these dental teams thrive every day in a confident environment, enhancing that patient care. So thank you, Janice. I'm so excited for you to be here today, and welcome.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
You know, I have known you for, I don't know, it's been more than 10 years, I'm sure. And
yeah.
I have just loved watching you. Just the things you do on a daily basis are truly inspiring. You've kind of dedicated your career to helping other people project confidence and achieve success. And can you just share a little bit about your journey and what has inspired you to become a dental consultant, especially as an image consultant?
Sure. Thanks, Jacqueline. Absolutely. I started out in medicine. I had a degree in microbiology and organizational behavior, and I was hired by rural care hospitals, facilities to train the physician on how to schedule and personnel, et cetera. And during that time, medicine went from free enterprise to managed care, and dentistry was 100% just individual solo practice owned. And I was really more drawn to the practitioner that this was their dream to create a great environment, give excellence. And I thought if there's any way I can help that person who worked so hard going through dental school to succeed, that's what I wanted to do. So I did.
I love it. I love it. So everyone's goal is to be happier every day, I feel like. And I feel like you spend your days just really, that's the basis of what you do to help other people be happy. And one thing you've said is that you spend your time helping offices enjoy their day every day. So the goal as a practice owner is to build this positive work environment. So how, in your experience, how can dentists create that positive work environment that fosters that joy that obviously every dental team wants to have in their environment?
Yes, it's really kind of a shift in attitude, even for me, where I used to look so hard and long at the analytics, which I still do. So before I take on a practice, I do a dive behind to see how many active new patients and all those things that are so important. But what I've recognized is as important as the systems are, that I actually even have my potential clients take an online test on their general happiness level. So there's a book called Positive Intelligence by Sharmeen Shazid, and who's got his doctorate and lectures at Stanford on the effect of happiness within the workplace, such that you're more likely to do a good job the happier you are. So even though we used to focus so much on training our team and implementing systems and role playing on what to say, it's new to me. And I've implemented it strongly in the last 5 years about the level of happiness. So this test online, which any of your listeners can access for free, allows each team member to grade themselves in terms of 1 to 100 in terms of how happy they are. Anytime you have a team that's collectively numbers are below 75, the important thing to do is to address the happiness level. And it's not about the environment that they work in, that's important. It's personally something that you or I can change. And it's about noticing the smallest of joys, right? It's noticing the bee that is landing on that flower, and it's noticing the smile that your child has and being present in the moment. So you can, and it's scientifically proven, you can increase your happiness level, and happiness ends up being a very important piece in practice success.
That's amazing. I know I've heard the quote, your happiness really isn't about the circumstances of our lives, it's the focus of our lives. And
100%.
yes, and I think that is just exactly, you just kind of hit it right on the head. And so there could be some miserable things going on in a person's life. But when they show up to work, it's kind of like an experience of where you're like, I'm just going to focus to be happy today. And that's exactly, that's the focus of their life. And you choose to have joy. You choose to have joy.
About 15 years ago, I had two clients in the same city, Lemoore, California, and their practice numbers were about the same, except one had a real challenge keeping team members, and the others, we would have 4 or 5 applicants for the same position, and he was really growing his practice. And their morning huddle was indicative of what the problem was. So the problem that had a problem, if you were to attend that morning huddle, it was a female dentist. She'd start on time, but she would bemoan the fact of all the things she had to do to get her two kids out the door that morning. And she had a stay-at-home husband, a full-time stay-at-home husband. So the other team members there listening to the morning huddle, they didn't have that benefit and quality of access to those services. And they had to listen to their own doctor complain. And I would go next door because they were literally on the same street. And I would hear the other doctor have the morning huddle. And throughout, he would walk through the door and just simply say, "Oh, great day. I'm so blessed. Tell me about who we get to see this morning on the schedule." I
Wow.
knew that he had a surprise 17-year-old daughter at a Christian private school, unexpectedly pregnant. I knew that his wife had been recently diagnosed with breast cancer, but you would never have known it to be around him because he truly was grateful for those patients on the schedule and the team that he had. And it played out very strongly.
Oh, I think that's such a great story. We all have hard things.
Yeah.
Life is hard. So the sooner you can figure out how to deal with finding a way to be happy, I think the better. And sometimes it takes individuals longer than others, but I think those are both really good examples of, strategies dentists can use. So
And do our children a disservice if what we focus on is things should be easy for them, or we portray the fact that they'd be happier if we lived in a bigger house. We'd be happier if all the patients showed up. We'd be happier if we met X production goal. When in fact, we know that you have a general happiness level that you can choose to increase or decrease based on your focus. And I often ask people in an audience when I'm speaking on image and branding in dentistry, I ask them to finish the sentence, "I'm happy when." So I let them know that later on we'll talk about that. And when you go around the room or they go up to the microphone, it usually goes something like this: "I'm happy when the doctor's happy. I'm happy when the lab delivers the case that I asked for. I'm happy when the schedule's full." So then I ask them to notice how many times the situation that they described was contingent upon someone else.
yeah,
And then I challenge them to, just like you said, maybe consider instead that I'm happy when I decide to be.
yeah, I love that. It's interesting. Studies show that some of the happiest people in the world are in third world countries and they have absolutely nothing. And they just find joy in their journey of where they're at. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that you talked about that in your presentation.
And part of it's genetics. I think I talk about the subject of confidence versus self-esteem. So confidence comes from the doing. That means when you first went to dental school and they asked you to do a crown prep, you didn't have much confidence the first time, but by the 10th time you did. Where self-esteem is what you're telling yourself in your brain as you're trying something new or you're facing a situation. So genetically, 50% of your self-esteem comes from your uh, family members. So I know I went several times to Nairobi to Africa Hope Center and spent time there at an orphanage where those children were all there because their patients and parents had died from AIDS. But in general, Nairobi's Kenyans are very happy, upbeat people. And, I'm Norwegian. We're a little more prone to stoicism, but that's only 50% of our genetics. So we can work on the other half.
I love that. So you brought up the topic of self-esteem versus self-confidence.
Mhm.
Does a practice owner need both of those in their practice in order to find, you know, kind of more of a cohesive team? What is your explanation of that?
So the owner wants to improve their own self-esteem and confidence on a regular basis because they're going to make better decisions. About 7 years ago, I really spent a lot of time specifically studying the social science and neuroscience behind confidence and self-esteem because what I was doing in hindsight was looking at any time in my life I had made a decision that I would now choose to make differently. And it was always from a position of lack of strength and lack of confidence. So the dental practitioner is really at an advantage when they focus on their own self-confidence, their own self-confidence. And then the other piece that I encourage my clients to do is yes, it's nice to have some experience on a resume, and you certainly need a hygienist and your dental assistants in some states to be licensed, but hire first for confidence. That means when you ask the questions, somebody with strong confidence is able to make statements, not run on sentences. They're
Yeah.
able to put things in a positive perspective. They don't blame others, they don't compare other people. And a confident person is more likely to learn or more interested in learning new things. So think about how that comes into play every time you bring on a new scanner or a new software, or you introduce your patient scheduling online. People with low self confidence on your team are going to give you pushback from that situation because it threatens their own well being. Self esteem, you can encourage your team by saying positive things for them as they take on small tasks. And you can increase confidence and self esteem by making sure that you schedule non patient days for training on new systems, software, equipment, etc. Because people don't like to learn in front of the patients, and it's actually not good for your brand or image when you have a team member saying to the patient that came in for a new patient exam and they're taking the 16 photos, "I'm sorry, I'm new here. First time I've done this." You uh, support, encourage others when you have enough in your own cup. And it's always an opportunity to help somebody else feel better about themselves.
Oh, I totally agree with that. In any situation, no matter
Any
where you're
situation.
at, the more prepared you are and the more you can prepare your team, like you say, do that training on non-patient days so that they feel comfortable. Even if it takes several days to make them feel comfortable, at least you're going through the process of helping them gain that confidence through that training.
And you're more likely to retain good team members.
Oh,
The
yeah.
most common complaints is new team members felt like they were just thrown into the situation without any training. So,
Oh, exactly. I think I've talked about this. My daughter, she just switched dental practices and they had no training organized for her. And she was just so frustrated she didn't last very long. She was like,
yeah.
but you have to have the things in place so that you can learn. And I just kept telling her, I feel like you were kind of set up to fail in this environment. She went back to her other dentist who was so great at helping her learn and be confident and gave her her own autonomy to make these decisions when it came to patients. Where this second practice, the doctor wanted to be involved in every decision. And she had rescheduled a kid who showed up 30 minutes late for the
Right.
following Monday. This was a Friday. And the doctor kind of got on her case about it because he felt like he should have seen that patient. And it just didn't take very long for her to realize, don't know if I can work here because the organization was hard.
What had motivated her to change in the first place? Little sidebar, but
Just time, just her commute. She got
Uh-huh.
married and it was like a 30-minute commute. And in the winter, Utah winters are kind of hard with the roads and the weather. So she was just like, I don't really want to commute. And this new place was 5 minutes from her place. And they kind of went after her and said, we'd love to have you come work for us. She knew one of the dental assistants. And she's just like, this isn't for me. I can't work here.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
chose the commute over the 5 minutes because
There you
of
go.
the environment. Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of our last questions. If you had one piece of critical advice for dentists today that could improve the health of their practice, what would it be?
It would be not to be afraid of the analytics, whether you use Denometrics or another way through your software to see what's going on behind the scene. Make decisions from facts. So, an example, a client in Atlanta, a fairly new client, and he had a dental assistant that he helped put through hygiene school. So, as soon as she graduated, he was so excited and he added her on board so that there were now 3 hygienists full time. So the other 2 hygienists had been with him for 20, 25 years. He added a new hygienist, and now the added pressure of trying to keep that person's schedule full. And when he asks me what he should do, I said, you should trust the analytics. And the analytics say, based on the patients that you had the right number of patients in the first place. And the analytics will show you what percentage of your active patients, which is very different than what the practice number will show, right? Active being they've been in the last 18 months, what percentage of those are unappointed? So if you have a very tiny, small group of patients that are unappointed and you aren't getting enough new patients now in the first place to feed more in hygiene, and you're running behind schedule because one doctor is trying to see 3 hygiene. Trust your analytics and know those before you make a practice decision. Another example is oftentimes you bring in an associate because you're tired, but if you don't have enough wealth to spread around, being that those are the patients and you don't want to reduce your own days, you're making a poor business decision that I could make by just looking at the analytics before even stepping in your practice.
Well, I think that's a great piece of advice. Those analytics probably help come into play when you're just, even as a dentist, like we've talked about both sides of the puzzle. We've talked about personal and fulfillment and joy, but then we've also talked a little bit about running the business and what you need to depend on to make sure you're making those good decisions with running that business. How hard is it for a dentist to balance those business demands with that need for personal fulfillment?
Hmm, that's a good point. I think it gets harder for the dentist if they're not enjoying why they went into dentistry in the first place, if they're not enjoying that new family that joined the practice, if they're not enjoying having the autonomy to rewrite their paperwork so it's not old school, right? I mean, have you ever looked at some of the paperwork that we dental practices send out? It's so old school. It has on there, are you married, divorced, single, just ugly? What is the reason you don't have a spouse? I mean, so if you can,
Yeah.
as a private practice owner, enjoy the fact that you can make that paperwork any way that you want, but you have to base it on the facts. You have to allow enough time in your life. So if you see patients 4 days a week, then plan on the fact that you need a full administrative day. And so sometimes we make life harder for ourselves because we look at somebody else and we believe what someone else is doing, and we can't look behind as to how much they're putting in that's administrative time. So I think the best advice I would give so that you do enjoy what you're doing is be realistic in the amount of time it takes to be as prepared as possible, and never make production and collection numbers your ultimate goal.
Well, I think that's great advice. Thank you, Janice, for
My
being here
pleasure.
today. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you was hoping we would touch on today?
I think I just want to encourage dentists to know that I believe there's no better time to be in dentistry and that we have that opportunity to connect and give to people every single day that is so rewarding, which helps us feel grateful, right? Helps us feel grateful and to not be concerned that insurance involvement has taken over, that there's ways to absolutely manage that. And all the time we use eAssist to help with those staffing challenges because there are certain things that somebody dedicated, trained, and focused on from eAssist can do a better job with. And for my clients, one of the first things we do is have them check benefits and post payments and follow through on insurance, et cetera. So a big thank you to eAssist on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. ESS sponsors this podcast, and I'm grateful that you kind of pulled them in. Basically, there's a couple of things. Let's talk about the best way to get a hold of you first, and how to get a hold of eAssist.
Sure. I have a website, which is my name, janicehurley.com. And then if any of your listeners want to schedule just a 30-minute complimentary chat time to talk about what's going on in their practice, I would enjoy that. And the phone number and contact information is on my website. Or if you Google Janice Hurley with the Janice. I enjoy dentistry so much and have such a seasoned perspective that sometimes I can be helpful to individuals, whether they're new in dentistry or quite seasoned, from the fact that there's not a whole lot I haven't already seen. And sometimes they worry about things that they don't need to worry about. And other times I can direct them to put their focus in a different area.
I love it. That sounds great. Well, the theme today has been, I don't know if you've noticed, but the theme today has been to be bold and brave and joyful in dentistry. And a lot of the things that we've talked about does take a bold and brave dental practitioner to find that joy in dentistry. So as we wrap up, and if you are looking for a service to help practices like yours achieve financial and operational excellence, go to dentalbilling.com. That's where you can find out a little bit more about eAssist as well. And if you are finding that you're overwhelmed because you're dealing with the business aspects of your practice and you're trying to find a way to bring your team to be more cohesive, please reach out to Janice at janicehurley.com, and she would love to talk to you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share this episode with others. We are excited that you're here, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Janice.
Thanks, Jacqueline.
Bye. Bye.
The purpose of this podcast is to interview the consultants within our eAssist Consultant Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only. For more details, please visit the homepage of this podcast platform at dentalbilling.com. Thanks for listening.